Gilmore Girls is one of the most rewatchable shows of all time, but not every episode is worth revisiting, and there are several I always skip when returning to the series. Gilmore Girls' humor and charm make it a fun show to fall back into, as the backdrop of Stars Hollow and the character dynamics are often comforting. This is the case, even when there's drama unfolding on screen, and that's why so many fans return to the series every year. In fact, watching it can be even more satisfying the second time around, as readers know where such conflicts will go. But Gilmore Girls ran for 7 seasons, and like any long-running series, it had its highs and lows. Some of the hardest scenes to watch, like Rory and Dean's Season 4 affair, are placed into otherwise great episodes. However, other frustrating storylines span entire installments, making them much easier to skip upon a rewatch. There are a few chapters that are far from Gilmore Girls' best episodes, and I find little reason to revisit them, even when going back through the series in its entirety. 6. That Damn Donna Reed. Season 1, Episode 14. Most episodes in Gilmore Girls Season 1 are solid, as the series gets off to a strong start. It's only later that some of the most prominent characters' flaws come out, making them more noticeably frustrating to follow. However, Dean Forrester's downfall is imminent from the beginning, and while that doesn't hurt most of his scenes in the earlier seasons, it does make me skip one installment every time. That Damn Donna Reed. This episode sees Rory playing the role of a traditional homemaker after Dean claims he wants that, and while she's trying to make a point, it doesn't land. Rory is right to question the fact that she and Dean don't want the same things, but it feels as though she's overly critical of homemakers rather than just rejecting that future for herself. On the other side of things, it's questionable for Dean to wish for such a lifestyle, knowing the girl he wants a future with isn't interested. Given his later behavior, his comments make me annoyed by him as well. Overall, this installment just doesn't accomplish what it sets out to, and even Luke and Lorelai's hunt for a missing chick can't convince me to rewatch it. 5. Here Comes the Sun. Season 3, Episode 21. Gilmore Girls Season 3's Here Comes the Sun is an episode that focuses heavily on Jess Mariano. And although I'm a huge Jess fan, I do find it difficult to sit through this chapter every time I rewatch the series. It has a different feel than the rest of Gilmore Girls, likely because it was a backdoor pilot for the Jess spin-off that never happened. It also takes viewers to California, which eliminates some of the small-town charm that makes the show so rewatchable in the first place. Here Comes the Sun. Jess ventures to California to track down his father, a storyline that should be interesting, given how likable Jess is and how his parental problems fuel his narrative. Unfortunately, Jimmy just isn't compelling as a character, and it doesn't feel like Jess accomplishes much with this journey. The scenes back in Connecticut do little to improve the episode, and as so little of consequence occurs, it's extremely easy to skip Here Comes the Sun on a rewatch. 4. Always a Godmother, Never a God. Season 6, Episode 4. Sookie and Jackson's relationship begins to feel stale in the later seasons. Indeed, Gilmore Girls Season 7 makes me think they should have broken up by the end, and that doesn't make episodes that focus on their family all that rewatchable. That's one reason I tend to skip Season 6, Always a Godmother, Never a God, when revisiting the show, though it isn't the only one. This episode is set during Gilmore Girls' most controversial storyline, the one that sees Lorelai and Rory not speaking. And their behavior during Sookie's kid's christening remains hard to watch. In addition to Lorelai's selfishness being on full display at the baptism, Rory's antics earlier in the episode are frustrating to watch. She leans into the world of Emily Gilmore, and she totally overlooks the problematic way that Logan's friends talk about other women. This installment typically leaves me angry at every Gilmore Girls character, so it's not worth rewatching. It doesn't bring me joy, and by Emily Gilmore standards, that means it has to go. 3. A Vineyard Valentine. Season 6, Episode 15. A Valentine's Day episode of Gilmore Girls should be endearing, but Season 6, A Vineyard Valentine, actually proves difficult to watch, so much so that I tend to skip over it. A Vineyard Valentine sees Logan, Rory, Lorelai, and Luke taking a trip to Martha's Vineyard. Given the tensions between Logan and Luke and Lorelai, it's an odd situation. And while that could work in the episode's favor, the execution doesn't do anything to make this grouping more compelling. Most of the characters feel out of place, and Martha's Vineyard doesn't prove a great backdrop for Gilmore Girls. This installment also doesn't reflect well on Luke, as he's reluctant to do much for Valentine's Day, and April continues to come between him and Rory. A Vineyard Valentine emphasizes the early cracks in Luke's and Lorelai's relationship, and it makes me incredibly frustrated that the series drives them apart and towards their later breakup. After years of waiting for them to get together, I don't see much of a point in dwelling on their worst chapters together. It's why I often skim Gilmore Girls Seasons 6 and 7 while revisiting the show. 2. That's what you get, folks, for Mark in Whoopi. Season 7, Episode 2. Gilmore Girls Season 7 has a lot of controversial turns, and that's what you get, folks, for Markin. Whoopi highlights some of its biggest issues. This installment pushes Rory and Logan apart, just after the show made their relationship somewhat appealing, and it also drives a wedge between Lorelai and Luke. Additionally, this chapter treats Lane's character terribly, and it sets the stage for many of the biggest complaints about her ending. Not only does she reveal that her honeymoon went poorly, but she expresses immediate unhappiness with her marriage, and then learns she's pregnant. It's hard to watch Lane's narrative go in this direction, especially knowing that it doesn't get any better in Season 7 or A Year in the Life. This episode is the first sign that the show would fail Lane, and it's somehow harder to watch in hindsight. In fact, the only real reason to revisit this one is to watch Luke punch Christopher, and that happens at the very beginning, meaning you can just watch the first few minutes. 1. French Twist. Season 7, Episode 7. Perhaps the most frustrating episode of Gilmore Girls sees the series leaning into Lorelai's and Christopher's relationship, well after it should have ended, and after viewers clearly wanted her to be with Luke instead. Season 7's French Twist takes Lorelai and Christopher to Paris, where they decide to get married. As someone who doesn't appreciate Lorelai's and Christopher's dynamic, especially in the later seasons, I don't find this installment pleasurable to rewatch, and Rory's narrative doesn't add much, making it an obvious episode to skip over. While her emotional admission that she's scared of graduation is the one compelling detail of this installment, it's a brief part of it, and it sets up her struggles in A Year in the Life. Lane and Zach's storyline is also frustrating, which is why I never find a good reason to return to this Gilmore Girls episode.